We had no intention of being like a production farm. We had no intention
So I've
of
never
ever
farmed.
being.
7 years ago, the largest animal I had ever owned was a dog. We get into our older years, that's the plan, is just, the business will slow down, and then hopefully we have everything in place just to do just strictly homesteading. We also love our other jobs, because I work with preterm babies. She works with cleft lip and palate kids.
Maybe just because we work with babies. I don't know. We're always caring. It's in every job. It's in every bit of everything that we do every day, no matter if we're on the farm or we're at our off-farm job.
It's one of those things where a lot of people will try to get into farming or another business because they don't like what they're doing.
But did you buy this place intending for it to be more of like a homestead? So you're Jason and Lexie, and we are at Longbottom Farm. And you guys have a really unique property because you are on a river, like right on a river. And we're standing at your cattle pastures right now. So tell me a little bit about, I know we talked off camera, but tell me a little bit about what brought you here, kind of why you're here and what you're doing with the land that you have.
So we were living in the suburbs of Richmond. We both work in healthcare, and we were having little babies, and we were living our dream in the suburbs. And then we really got to thinking about, we making our own baby food, and what are we feeding our children? And then it started to be, well, what are we feeding ourselves too? We got really concerned about those types of things. You watch, Food Inc. on Netflix, and you're like, we should probably investigate this a little bit further. We got to thinking, and I grew up with a background of very minimal farming, just 1 cow, 3 pigs every year.
But still a basic understanding of where your food comes from. You already kind of had that.
Definitely. And I was like, oh, well, we should really look for a property that would allow us to do that for our kids, really. So we know what we're feeding them. They know how the food system works. And so we moved here.
I had 2 mortgages for a while, and then we moved here, and luckily the other house sold at about the same time we were closing on this one, so it all really worked out.
Yeah, this house had been kind of on our watch list for a while. She needed so much work, but it was just, it checked a lot of boxes for us. It's in a very small town. It's super quiet out here. It was just everything we wanted for our family, and it was still close enough. We still do work at hospitals. So I'm a nurse at UVA, and he's a PA in Richmond.
Is that full-time, or is that like PRN?
I have a full-time, but it's a modified, it's 30 hours a week basically, and then I use PTO as well every week. So I work about 25 hours a week with that, and it's usually we do 24-hour shifts typically on the weekend. So it's 1 day a week there, and then 6 days here on the farm.
And then I'm part-time, but after COVID hit, they realized that I could do so much more remotely. So I only have to go into the hospital 2 days a month. So just my clinic days, I run the cleft lip and palate team for the babies out there. So I only go in twice a month. And other than that, I'm kind of on call. If anybody has a question, if anything needs an appointment, I'm still available, and I can do everything from home.
Wow, that's really cool.
It was one of the mixed blessings, I think, that came out of a really horrible situation, is just being able to be home more.
Yeah, you've got an old house, and we looked up there when we were up there before, but your property's interesting with a layout. So how big is your property, and kind of describe a little bit of the layout?
Right, so it's 55 acres. It's pretty hilly. This is on the river, and that's actually
so this is very flat.
Right, this is perfectly flat. It's and it's actually where the name Longbottom came from. When we were looking at ads, it was advertised as long river frontage with bottomland, and just Longbottom kind of jumped out that when we were trying to think of farm name. So we've got about 35 acres down here that's flat pasture. It's where our cattle and our broilers spend most of their time. And then up top, you notice it's a lot of hills. So up top, we tend to do our pigs, our chickens, and it's just really a big square property. With about 1,100 foot of river access.
You mentioned being on the river poses some unique challenges. People, I see that and I'm like, wow, that's so cool, like recreationally. So you said that these pastures grow really, really well. They're really full of amazing nutrients, I'm sure, from sediment offput of the river. But you can't have your animals down here often because it gets too wet.
We have to pull them up usually late December is about all we can get away with, and then they come back down here in April. So that's the earliest that we can do. It just gets so boggy.
Yeah.
It stays moist. It grows amazing grass. It grows a wide variety of forage, which we love.
Yeah.
But being able to plan our year and how many head we're running for that winter time when everybody's up at the house and our property's cut in half is a little bit of a challenge.
The big thing is during the winter. During this time of year, it drains well. The cattle and all the animals are fenced about 100 feet off of the bank, so they don't have any access to the river, obviously.
Wouldn't that be
And yeah, and it's actually set up where there's about a 10 to 15 foot drop, and then there's a bottom land that's where the cattle are fenced out of, and that's along the river. So that tends to be the floodplain. And it's kind of unique in that when if we have to worry about animals down here, what do you do if it's a flood or something like that? And there's actually channels built in where the water will come around and it'll actually flood back here when the river's up there, so it turns this into an island, essentially.
Wow.
But we've never really seen this flood. And I think years ago before we moved here, they did a lot of crops, and I think it was a way to save their crops if there was going to be a flood, is it brings the water back here, preserves most of the crops. And
How long have you been here?
7.5
end of
years.
2016, yeah,
Okay.
so about 7.5 years.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So I'm looking at your cattle and I see some Belties, which you're only the second farm that we've toured that has belted Galloways. So I always, it's just a unique breed. And then you got some cross in there. So what are you doing with your cattle out here?
So generally our model is we would buy yearlings. We bring them in, raise them out, and go from there. Here lately, the prices of cattle have been a lot. They've really went up, and it makes it hard for a farm to table, if you're selling beef. So we've been looking for herds, people that are maybe getting out of farming or people that don't want to deal with the sale barn, and just trying to get more herds. That way we can go out, see the farm that we're getting the cattle from, kind of know, you can tell a lot by doing that. And so we don't do a lot of breeding here. We'll occasionally buy some bred back cattle and have babies, but other than that, we tend to just look for cattle that are from a grass-fed system only. We don't do any grains. The only supplements these cattle get are organic kelp, just because the soil is deficient. All soil everywhere is deficient in certain things. So organic kelp and salt, and then we will give them non-GMO alfalfa pellets as a treat. People will train them to a bucket, and instead of using grain, we use alfalfa pellets so that they're still on grass.
Gotcha.
Still getting grass.
So I see like some white posts. Do you move them through the pasture? How often do you do that?
Yeah, we do that. Kind of depends on, one, what our schedule is, two, what the weather's going to be like. Our goal is to do about every 2 to 3 days. That's what we aim for. And again, if you get a lot of rain and their paddock's a little smaller, you may have to move a little sooner than that. And then again, we do work off farm jobs, so sometimes we have to kind of base how big the paddock will be around that. But generally our goal is 3 days. So.
Nice. So how many calves are out here then?
As far as calves, we have...
Cattle.
Oh, cattle.
How many head do you have out here?
Yeah, we're up to, should be around 34 head right now.
So is that a mix in between cows?
It is a mix.
And calves?
Yeah.
Okay, so you're like building a herd.
Right. Yeah, we kind of, like I say, we do direct to table. So we'll grow them out generally between 2 and 3 years before we take them to the processor. This time of year, we can run a higher density. We've had up to 50 here on the farm before.
Wow.
But if we go into winter with that much, we can't sustain it during that time of year because it's just too much pressure on the land, hay. So generally we try to keep it around 30 as a good manageable number for us. And that's cows coming into the farm and cows going out. So it varies at times, but that's generally where we try to be at.
You mentioned that you bought this place just to kind of be a little more conscious about what you're eating, where your food's coming from. So did you buy this place intending for it to be more of like a homestead, like just for you?
Absolutely. We had no intention of being like a production farm. We had no intention
So I've
of
never
ever
farmed.
being...
7 years ago, the largest animal I had ever owned was a dog. So this was more of a, let's move out here and just start doing some stuff for ourselves, maybe raising some food for our family and our kids.
Then people that we work with, started hearing, oh, well, of course, it always starts with chickens. I feel like they're the gateway.
Yeah.
So it started with, oh, we've got extra eggs. We'd give them to, our coworkers at the hospital. We'd do things like that. And then people were like, oh, these are great. We would love to buy some. And if you're ever raising anything else, let us know. And there was just so much interest. And honestly, there was so much support. Like our coworkers have been really amazing through all of this.
That's
just
awesome.
super encouraging. They were some of our very first customers as far as buying from us. And it just grew. It just grew and grew and grew. And it was pretty organic in the beginning, first couple of years, but then COVID hit and everybody got really curious about what food processes are and where it's coming from and how it's sustainable. And when those grocery shelves are empty, what do we do? So people just, we were so busy and we were growing so fast around a time also where we were so busy in the hospital because things were so crazy on healthcare too. That it was,
I can't imagine.
It was a hot mess for a little bit. But in the end, I think it landed us in a place where we know what we're capable of. We know what we can produce and provide reliably. And it really set us up with a phenomenal customer base that we sell out of the Charlottesville City Market. It's about 30 minutes from here. It's a wonderful producer market, and we just have had regulars since day one. It's been really great.
That's awesome. So on the business aspect then, your coworkers are very supportive. This is a very small town though. I did see a farmer's market on my way in. So I assume the community is very supportive for local agriculture. Is that correct?
Very.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then do you sell elsewhere? Like how from the business side of things, how do you sell your product?
We actually started at our little market here, but we were one of like 4 meat vendors, and it was just
out of like 15 vendors. So.
Yeah, a little oversaturated.
A little bit much there. So we got into the Charlottesville City Market pretty quickly. I think we only spent 1 year here and then went there. That is a solid market for us.
Yeah, that market is ginormous. Is it the big one?
It's big, and we were one of 2 meat vendors there for years.
Wow.
No,
and they have like 50 vendors.
There's like 3 or 4 now total.
Wow.
So that changed things a lot too. But then also we've got a natural food store right here downtown, Farmstead Ferments. They sell our products. We are actually able to get a couple local contracts with some bakeries that supply our eggs and do things like that. And then we have a full online store. So he manages the website and has done a phenomenal job of setting it up so that people can just go, click what they want. They can either pick it up here at the barn. We've got freezers and fridges for pickups, or they can pick it up at market, or we do deliveries on Fridays.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that I learned when we started doing this was that even when we were trying to buy food, a lot of times it's hard to buy food raised naturally. You know, getting from farms or farms getting their message out there to how they're selling, and we just wanted to sort of set it up to make it easy for people. I usually tell her it's kind of like I want our farm to be like an Amazon almost, where you go online, you click, and you get the food, just making it very simple.
Yeah.
And so, you know, we've set it up where people can order just everything online. That, you know, we've got a curbside pickup where we have freezers and fridges outside, and from 8 in the morning till 8 at night, 7 days a week, they just come pick it up themselves.
Wow.
Just to try to make it so. We started out with coolers on the side of the road, but you know, that you got a time limit of about 4 hours where things start to thaw, and plus it's hard for people to, you know, just busy. Everybody's busy these days, and to make that 4-hour window. So now we've got that, and then we also do local delivery into Charlottesville. You know, just something we especially started doing during COVID when things shut down was we could do a contactless system where they leave a cooler out, and we'll just put it there. And then the farmers market, and we dabbled in shipping a little bit, but we've found that right now we're not even meeting local demand. So for that reason, we cut shipping out, and we're just doing it local.
I think for us too, local is so important to us. I would never want to take away from another farm. There are so many farms out there, and yes, it is hard to sometimes find them, but they're out there, and I just want people, I'm very passionate about people eating locally. You know, there is a carbon footprint to trying to ship these things in 48 hours, and the dry ice and the packaging and the everything that goes into it. And I was like, gosh, is this really what we're trying to do? Are we, you know, as fun as it would possibly be, to be like big time and shipping across the country and everything. It's like, gosh, what really are our goals? It's like to feed our community. And I really want everyone to have a local farm wherever they are, you know, just to be able to find their farm.
Yeah. And those local farms, I mean, those small farms you talk about, they're out there.
They are.
And like, that's why we're doing this, right?
They
Because
are.
they are out there. It's just, sometimes it's hard to like navigate through all of the advertising and the big things that are in your face to get to them.
Yeah.
So I'm really interested in your management practice, specifically on this this boggy area, the Longbottom part of your farm. So how did you guys decide that like something needed to be managed a little different? Like, did you look at farms that had wetter areas to see how you should manage it, or did you just like listen to the land trial and error? Like, how did that work?
So this area actually doesn't stay too boggy. Like I mean, you can see it's pretty dry in here. So this drains well. It's more during the winter time that we have problems with the bogginess. And I would say from about November through late March. And that's when the ground just changes and it holds moisture. And not that we couldn't keep the cattle down here, but we've been trying to really cultivate the pastures, you know, get good grasses coming up, a diversity of things. And if you left them down here all winter, it would kind of look like this around the water. is just they would tear it up and muddy. And
so did you like figure that out because you left the cows down here in the winter and it got that way?
Actually, the funny thing is, so the house we bought, our neighbor is actually 88 now. He was born in this home.
Wow.
It was all of these pieces of property were part of his family farm. Wow. So he, his name's Roy. He's a treasure. He is just a gift. He kind of came with the farm, and he was so helpful when we were getting started, just to be like, oh, you can't cut down past here. You'll roll your tractor. You got to get your cows up by this point. And he knows this land. I mean, there's nobody that's probably going to know it better than somebody who's 80 some odd years old and has been his whole life here. So we were grateful to have him. We've listened to everything that he has told us, and it's worked, honestly.
We run hundreds of cattle through here, and again, it had another 200 acres added to this property when they did it. But you know, he would talk about when they got blackleg in the cattle and things that just everything he's experienced and telling us don't do that. So he's been really instrumental in letting us know, like, hey, you need to pull your cattle up at this time. You can usually get them back down at this time, and just some of the things to avoid. That you know, we actually did an experiment up here where we rotated some pigs on this pasture, and the pigs did great, but it really part of it we didn't move them fast enough, but it left some weeds and some different things, and he saw that, and basically he let us know, like, you leave your cattle down here, that's what's going to happen to your whole pastures. So yeah, just, you know, listening to experience, basically. Those that have done it before, and like I say, he's just been, you know, he's 88, and you know, he may be up there now splitting wood, and you know, he just he's a treasure. He's been awesome. He
is, and he's been so good to our family. He knows all the girls' birthdays. He drops off cakes. He's
like your little extra grandpa.
He is. He's lovely.
Awesome.
And then some of it's just trial and error too. You know, it's, again, I'm a first generation, you know, just kind of learned all this from YouTube and books and
Roy.
Joel Salatin, Greg Judy, and Roy. And you know, you get out here, you try something, and you know, I find it very interesting just how the biology works and the system. So just studying it, you know, figuring out what works and what doesn't.
Coming from like the medical field, how does your brain react to that? Like you said, you like the biology of it, but and correct me if I'm wrong, but typically on the medical field, you're treating the symptoms, right? And in this kind of management, you're finding the root causes of things. So how does that work for both of you being in the medical field?
Prevention is key. And I do think that there has been a big swing in medicine that we're preventing, you know. So my focus for my practice has always been preventing the issues. But it translates so easily into farming. You don't want to ever have to deal with them, so you make sure you are moving your cows frequently. You make sure they do have access to everything their body needs to grow. You are, you know, making sure that there is fresh water and good sunshine and all of these things. So I think just knowing what we know about the human body and about how once disease or whatever it is already set in, how much harder that makes life. It makes it so much easier to do the work on the front end and then get the prevention, get your system set up to succeed so you don't even have to deal with those things in the long term.
Because I've talked with farmers, you pay for it one way or another, right? Like you either pay for it in your management practice or you pay for it in the consequence of your
It's a lot like your
mismanagement.
equipment. You know, if you maintain it and do all the preventative stuff, it's going to do you well and do what you need. Where if you don't, it's not only going to let you down, but it's probably going to cost you a whole lot more money to fix. It's never going to be what it was. And so it's,
I think for me too, maybe just because we work with babies, I don't know, we're always caring. It's in every job. It's in every bit of everything that we do every day, no matter if we're on the farm or we're at our off-farm jobs. So I think for me, like, I would hate to see any of our animals suffer for our lack of either knowledge or effort.
Right.
So I think there's a lot that just goes into wanting them to have the best life that they possibly can. And I fully understand that we are raising animals to feed the community. I absolutely get that. And that's not everybody's boat. That's cool.
Right.
But I also want to be sure that my animals live the best life possible, and it's just one bad day, and that's it.
Yeah.
They are here. They've got names. They are loved. We know where they're at and who moves weird and who, you know, everything. I think that for us, when we got into it, we're like, we never want to get so big that we don't know.
Yeah.
You know, we never want to get to that point. We always want to know every single face that's here.
So with your management and, you know, your help from Roy and other resources that you've looked at, have you seen like a difference in the pastures than when you bought it?
Oh my goodness.
Has Roy had a difference or like had an opinion about those things?
So when we bought this, there were corn stalks this high. This was nothing but corn. When that kind of corn comes with, you know, pesticide, they drop them out of airplanes here. And so, so when we got here, it was in a lease. So while we were here, we still had to keep it in crop production because they do 3-year leases, and we had to honor that lease. So after the first year, we actually worked with, it's one of the local soil and water conservation agencies. And they had some grants, and they actually had a seed drill we could rent. I think it was like $11 an acre.
Oh, wow.
Super cheap, yeah.
That's pretty cool.
So we were able to work with them and actually go ahead and obviously let all the corn and stuff die. Get the seed drill out here and just, we typically put in fescue is what we initially put in. But you can see now there's clover that's come up.
You haven't planted the clover?
No, the only thing we put in here was fescue initially. And you know, I had plans to put more in, but just rotating the cattle through here, trying not to let them stay on one spot for any long period of time has really just, the diversity itself has just happened. You know, it's in the soil. It just needed a chance to happen. And, you know, obviously with chemicals being put down and all that, it's not going to happen. And the cattle were actually just through here. I don't know, it's been probably 3 or 4 weeks ago. So it grows back. And so it's been an amazing transformation. But, you know, the cool thing is we actually haven't had to do a lot. You know, like nature's just kind of, like I say, if you just rotate the cattle like they need to be rotated and, you know, just kind of let nature do its thing, it's done it.
Yeah.
So.
And speaking of the cattle, they have noticed us.
Yes.
Yeah.
And they are like, hey, there's people over there. So you said that you grow your cattle out 2 to 3 years?
Typically.
Is that what you said? Where did you get that advice from? I mean, obviously they're grass fed, so they're going to take longer. Our audience is aware of that. But did you know that time frame? How did you learn that time frame?
A 2-year-old and was like, wow, we should never do that again. just I think spending time with them, being able to study conformation, just being able to take classes. I took a wonderful class. It was Cattle Wise. It's a program specifically for women that is put on by our local extension office that did a lot of body grading and scoring.
Wow.
And it was really,
that's awesome.
It was so good. They went over tractor maintenance. They went over how to tag and vaccinate. They went over, you know, from really every aspect, and it was all women. And we have a wonderful staff out there too that are mostly women as well. So it was a super comfortable place to just ask those questions. You know, why is this? What hip triangles look like? What your brisket is going to look like? What size cantaloupe you're wanting that to be by the time you take them? But it was just so much of it is time, and sadly it is trial and error sometimes. But a lot of it was just looking at them, spending time with them, watching them as they grow and they fill out, and we're getting good product out of that.
That, and there's a lot of resources that you know, like say YouTube, there's books, you know, it's just, you can only get so much from that. But I think for us, you know, we consumed a ton of that in the beginning, and it was a starting point. Again, there's no substitute for experience, you know, just learning as you're doing it. But there's a lot of good guides out there, and again, a lot of it's just trial and error, and we've just found that around 2 to 3 years is a sweet spot. You know, some cattle take a little longer, some take a little less, and again, we're, you know, it may be different for other farms that are, you know, they have a breeding program, so they have specific genetics and can have a more of a predictable, you know, what to expect, where we, you know, we bring in yearlings typically, and we're not picky. You know, sometimes it's fun to have the different breeds. Like right now we have the Belteds, and we've had some Scottish Highland crosses, we've had some Dexters, we've had just a range of animals. And, you know, I think
some
one
Marie
day.
Grays in there now. I like the Marie Gray.
I see one.
I think they're pretty.
So so it keeps it interesting, and they're all, again, a little different, you know, just depending on their genetics, and it's more just, I'm by no means an expert, but we just try to watch and see, you know, who looks filled out, you know, who's ready, and go from there.
So you're managing all of this, and you're working off-farm jobs. I know you're mostly at home, but why are you still working off-farm jobs? Like, is the farm not carrying itself, or is it only carrying itself? Do you still need, you know, that income?
Right. So we got to a point actually probably about 2 years ago where the farm was, and we had thought about stopping our full-time jobs. The jobs are part-time now. And part of it is stability, especially with COVID hit. It kind of taught us that yes, you have income, but it can really wax and wane, and that's just a little scary. You know, it's again, I've never farmed, I've never had a business, so I've always worked a W-2, you know, so it had that stable paycheck. And the other thing is we just built a barn, and again, going back to COVID, our whole business is based on products. You know, we bring in basically products and then out goes products, and we wanted to get into some more service-oriented types of business to diversify a little bit, basically to keep the farm going in case another COVID happens or something. You know, when COVID happened, we had times we couldn't get egg cartons, we couldn't get our animals into the processor, and when things like that happen, that's, you know, if you can't get your animals in, you don't have a product to sell. And,
beef prices double.
You can't buy calves, or it's very expensive too.
So just to diversify a little bit, we're doing some horses. 3 daughters were into horses. My wife has a horse, and we figured it was a way to combine something that they love with, you know, a business aspect that hopefully will be a little more stable should anything happen. But again, just a way to diversify. Yeah, so it's that.
I'll always be a peds nurse. It's just part of who I am. I hadn't done cleft lip and palate specifically before, but I started, you know, almost 8 years ago now. So the babies that were born now are in school. Parents send me pictures. I get a lot personally from knowing, like, I helped them through a really challenging time, and it's a lifetime type thing where we are following them into their 20s and making sure that they are happy and as confident as they can going out into the world, and I just think that's really cool. I will always want to be a part of that.
And it's one of those things where a lot of people will try to get into farming or another business because they don't like what they're doing. And we're fortunate enough to actually have 2 jobs that we love. We love being on the farm, and we also love our other jobs because I work with preterm babies. She works with cleft lip and palate kids. And
there's a
so
lot
it's
of passion
kind of
there.
Yeah, it's the best of both worlds. And also our jobs, they're very accommodating. I mean, it's like I say, I'm there 1, maybe 2 days a week, and she's mostly at home. I think she goes in a couple times a month. And so we're still able to do this essentially full time and grow it without being hampered by, you know, certain constraints that a lot of jobs have.
Greta's out there somewhere too.
So you've got 200 laying hens here.
Approximately, yep.
Okay. They supply you with enough eggs to keep up a demand? Do you ever have like extra?
You
do?
Absolutely. We do, especially during the wintertime when we don't have a market.
Yeah.
You know, it was a lot to take on.
Yeah.
We know, sweetheart. It was a lot, but again, something that we're kind of passionate about is feeding our community. So we work with the local women's shelter. We work with a food bank, St. Andrews, Loaves and Fishes. We've donated to all of those, and fresh product is harder for them to get, so they're always super grateful and always needing. So there's always an outlet for it, and it's one that you really feel good about.
I love the fact that overall your farm you started as a homestead, and then it's really built up into a deep community culture where you're donating and you're selling your local products. Did you plan on that either? Like the donating aspect, or you just were like, hey, this is a really good idea. We have extra. Let's give where we can.
It happened It was a couple of years ago, and it was winter time. I just happened to see Loaves and Fishes was doing a food drive through the hospital that I was working at.
Okay.
I looked into their business and just really loved everything that they were doing, how they were doing it, how they were, trying to provide fresh, still local foods, even for people who might not be in the economic bracket to be able to eat locally or organically. And it was just the coolest thing. I called and talked to them, and we've had a relationship with them for years now that we're just awesome. Thrilled.
And part of it too is being in a position to do it. When we started, a lot of it was we didn't have anything. Like I say, there was no fences, there was nothing but the house. So getting the infrastructure in place, and then we just found we were in a position to actually give some away. And it was sort of something when we started, we were giving stuff to friends and stuff anyways. And so then to start, you meet people in the community, you hear stories, different things like that, especially being, she's at the farmer's market every Saturday. And just once we got more into the community and started learning more things about the community, meeting people, it sort of became something we wanted to do. And like I say, we're fortunate enough to do it.
We're a little hermity by nature. I think we're just introverts. So, it's not our go-to to be out in public. On film, on the internet.
Especially when you do a market every week and you're already working a job. I mean, I like to say that I am an introverted extrovert. I love talking to people. I think it's amazing, but it is exhausting.
It is.
It really is. And so when I was working full-time at a bank and doing farmers markets twice a week, and then having to do all the extra things that life makes you do, that is tiring.
Yes. But I don't think we would have built the community that we have without the farm, though. Like, it really gave us that, which is something that you need, even as an introvert, even as a hermit. It is important to have that, and just to see my kids be able to grow up with this community that is so supportive of them and what they're doing. They sell lavender lemonade at the farmers market. They have built up a customer base that misses them when they're not there, that asks about them, that says, oh my gosh, you've grown so much since last year. And it's just taught, I think, us too, even as adults, but also them, like, this is your village. Oh, these are your folks. And it's such a blessing to us. Not one that we saw coming, but definitely something we wouldn't have had without the farm.
I love every piece about that. That is awesome. Are you still able to do like the homesteady side? Like, I'm sure that you eat your eggs. I like to assume that you eat your meat product too, but having off-farm jobs is probably as helpful. But when we were farming, we really couldn't afford to eat like our fillets, so we never did. And when we sold it all, we were like, we should have been eating those this whole time. We are the ones sweating over this. We should have eaten this. So do you get to still eat your products?
So not sadly, but our rule with the products is that, like, the seal ruptures or something, that's ours.
Yeah.
Everything else tends to go out. So we're kind of in that same boat where we do sell our fillets, we sell our steaks, we rarely eat those things. But we've also found ways too, a seal can rupture on a rump roast, and you slow cook it for a while and stuff, you can make it just as tender. And as far as the homesteading stuff. It's actually fallen off a little, and you can see the garden there. It's more of just a fenced-in area at the moment. My oldest daughter, she's really into gardening, and she hurt her knee though, so she's been on crutches for the last number of weeks, and so hopefully she's going to get over that, and we can get back into that. But it's sort of a mix. I love the homesteading aspect of it, and when we get into our older years, that's the plan. Is just you know, the business will slow down, and then you know, hopefully we have everything in place just to do just strictly homesteading.
We're still able to barter a lot though. Like,
that's a good point.
That is when we still eat very locally. My girls love it because of course they've grown up essentially at this farmer's market. Everybody knows them. Crazy Farm will always bring us strawberries or asparagus or whatever is in season for them. It's very much, we're still able to know where our food comes from and still do it, but we trade eggs on a very regular basis. Crazy Farm is one of our favorite partner farms, and they will take all of our cow tongue if we could possibly get any more. It's just nice to see, you know, somebody who really values what we're doing, but still able to kind of feed our family locally too.
It kind of fills that gap where I want to be out here gardening and setting up rain catchment systems and doing some different stuff, but working with other farms like that is a way where, you know, they can do their thing and benefit from, you know, each other, you know, kind of filling in those gaps that maybe both farms don't have time to do.
It's really building that community where you're helping each other. You're not just feeding someone else, but you're feeding each other as a circle, as a whole unit. That is awesome. Thank you both so very much for letting us come out here and visit. Your property is absolutely stunning. It's so peaceful out here. I hope that you continue to do all the amazing things. And I don't want to forget to plug that you have a YouTube channel.
We do.
Longbottom Farms.
We do.
So you share your farm journeys and stories and things like that. So if anybody's interested more about this farm and what you're doing, you can go check it out there, and we'll put the description below, along with your website and anything else that you want us to include. So we'll put all of that in the description.
Sounds good.
But thank you both so much.
Thank you guys for coming out. Loved having you.
Absolutely. I love meeting people who are able to find the things that they didn't know that they were looking for. They came out here looking for a homestead. They just wanted food for themselves, and then lo and behold, they found a community of people that they could supply and feed. And doggies don't like that I'm over here. If you haven't seen it yet, we are building our Instagram. We used to have an Instagram, but that was for the farm, and we've since gotten rid of all of that content, and we're gonna start adding our farm content. Such a fun community. I love it. Just people will drive down the road and wave at you. They don't know who I am. I'm just here holding the camera. So check out our Instagram, breaking_new_roots. We'll put that in the description below as well. But we just want to start sharing more about us. Times a week or so depending, but we do other things. We do all kinds of extra fun things, and we've had a lot of people asking what we do. So we want to start sharing that stuff with you. So check that out. We can't wait to continue sharing our story and our journey with you. I hope you enjoyed this video. We will see you next time.